How do you like your fajitas? Chicken or steak? How about your voting rights? Texas or California? I posed these questions to U.S. Representative Kevin Mullin of California's 15th. And we also talked about being a dad, the importance of civics education, and having those dinner conversations with family that help keep the future of democracy alive. Here's our conversation. So you're a father of twins.
Yes, sir. Dropped them off this morning at school. They started second grade last week, so they're excited to be big second graders. But yeah, twin boys, and they keep them in separate classes so they don't just gravitate toward each other and mix in with the other kids. But yeah, they go to a public high school, pardon me, public school, elementary school, just right up the street from our home. It happens to be the same home that I grew up in. We inherited it from my father and mother when they passed. I'm in the basically the home that I grew up in, and my father was a 33-year civics teacher at South San Francisco High School. So that's so I'm drawn to your program, given the civics focus, and it's definitely a part of my DNA.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's important to have those conversations around the dinner table to make sense of things because right now there's lots of things that don't make so much sense, right?
Democracy is absolutely under attack right now. Voting rights are under attack. So we've done some great stuff in California. When I was in the state legislature, sort of setting a national standard on voting rights and voting access. But we are absolutely in defense of our democracy right now, given the political alignment in Washington, to say the least.
The important question, fajitas, chicken or steak?
Yeah, so I like to mix the meat. Okay, so we will barbecue tri-tip. My wife and I will barbecue tri-tip, and usually as leftovers, we'll cut up that tri-tip, throw some chicken in the pan. I keep it really simple, little enchilada sauce, and then I like to toss in. This is Palo Alto Firefighters pepper sauce.
Hey.
And if you're from my neck of the woods here, you know what this is. But the Palo Alto firefighters actually make this in the back of one of the firehouses, and all the proceeds go to charity to their charitable fund.
Oh,
But
great.
the pepper sauce is delicious, so I sprinkle a little bit in there. I'm not much of a onion or peppers guy. I keep it nice and simple. This is enough spice for me, but a little flour tortilla and
Well, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So you mix the meat and you keep it simple. And I've got to order some of that sauce online. I'm excited to do that. You focused on voting rights quite a bit throughout your career. Why does that remain an important focus for you? And what do you see in the next few years in terms of voting rights? Because obviously things are looking pretty scary.
yeah. Well, I think my personal interest, I have no doubt, started at the dinner table at our house with my father being a civics teacher and sort of, I think it's in the DNA that voting rights are crucial. Civic engagement is important. He would take his students to the local city council meeting and the local school board meeting so his students could see firsthand government in action and the kids could get a sense, they'd work on student projects and so forth that could actually come before the local bodies and those kinds of things. So that's always been sort of drilled in us. So I have no doubt that's why I wound up in politics, frankly. But voting rights was central to our work in the California state legislature. So I did 10 years in the legislature before heading to Washington, and we did a lot of work on universal vote by mail. So my county, my home county, San Mateo County, actually, we ran a pilot project where every voter automatically gets a ballot, postage paid. So we made it easier to vote than ever before, and breaking down all the barriers. And we actually demonstrated that Latino turnout went up, AAPI turnout went up, youth turnout went up in a municipal cycle. And that sort of model grew to 5 counties and then was exported really statewide. And as you know, during the pandemic, voting by mail spread across the country in a major way. And now we've got a president who's we're still waiting for all the language on that executive order, but essentially wants to do away with voting by mail, which makes absolutely no sense. Under the auspices that fraud can occur, we know that fraud is minuscule. It is a non-issue functionally. And really, we've got a president and a Republican Congress and red states that really want to erect barriers. They want to make it harder to vote. And I think it comes down to, a set of unpopular policies and some concern about what's going to happen in 2026 at the ballot box. So he put the directive out to Texas to add 5 Republican seats. So we in California, even though we do have a model citizens redistricting commission, we have a emergency for our democracy, and our governor has exhibited real leadership here, saying, "Look, if Texas is going to manipulate their process with a mid-decade gerrymander, we are going to respond in California if Texas moves forward and redraw our maps, basically find some seats to counter what is happening in Texas and in red states." So it's really in case of emergency, break the glass kind of a moment here. So we have a special election in November. The voters will decide if they want us to put these new maps into place, with the key caveat being we are preserving the independent redistricting commission to redraw the maps after the next census in 2030. So that commission's not going anywhere. This is just a unique set of circumstances to counter really anti-small d democratic attacks by the president and red states. And, we've got something called the Task Force on Strengthening Democracy in our House Democratic Caucus. I'm proud to be the co-chair of that. So when we take the gavels in 2026, you're going to see democracy reform and protection of our democracy central to our agenda, given the nature of what's happening out there, mostly in red states, to erect barriers to participation.
Yeah, it boggles the mind why there's no good argument for why you wouldn't want to make every eligible voter able to vote. And
Right.
and that's what we're seeing. And I know in California you have the independent committee. You have, and I'm so happy to hear that you're preserving that. You're actually putting this particular redistricting before the people, and really doing it the right way. In contrast to what Texas is doing, which is really just sort of serving the president instead of serving the people of Texas and democracy in general.
Yeah.
What else is happening around the country that you're seeing that we should be concerned with?
Right after the 2020 election, you saw a whole host of maneuvers by red states to, for example, limit the amount of time for early voting, removing vote by mail drop boxes, a whole host of things to create barriers to participation. We have been battling at the national level the SAVE Act, which is essentially requiring proof of citizenship papers in order to register to vote, which, if you think about it, is creating sort of an administrative nightmare for local elections officials who are nonpartisan professionals just trying to conduct our elections. But you're creating all of these administrative burdens. And from a very practical standpoint, there are married women in this country in the tens of millions who may have changed their name as a result of getting married, and the names don't match. And it would create the potential for disenfranchisement of large swaths of voters in this country. So that is now in the U.S. Senate. I certainly hope that our Democratic colleagues in the Senate stand up and fight that measure. But that's just one approach. Now, more recently, for example, we are aware that Utah is doing away with universal vote by mail. That's just one example. So there's just a lot of action at the state level. There are certainly, though, some glimmers of hope in other states where they're sort of following more of a California model where you want to get a ballot, a postage paid in voters' hands. Why wouldn't you, as you suggested, Slade, why wouldn't you want to make it as easy as possible for people to participate? You want an electorate that mirrors the population as a whole to get the most representative outcomes in our elections. But you have two very different philosophies, one of inclusion and the other of exclusion. So we are on the right side of history on this. If we take the gavels back, you're going to see elements of the Freedom to Vote Act, which is a Democratic priority. You're going to see efforts there. Just a little bit of history, since we did touch on gerrymandering. There was legislation that passed the Democratic-controlled House, which would have essentially ban gerrymandering like we're seeing across the country. Democrats supported it, Republicans opposed it because it is an effective tool in red states across the country. So, over the long haul, we've got to support the work of independent commissions. Ultimately, politicians shouldn't be choosing their voters. Independent bodies should be drawing those districts. So this is going to be a generational kind of a battle for democracy, and we are on the right side of history on this. So we're going to make that a priority when we get the gavels.
Now, one of the things that I get asked most often is, as an ordinary citizen, as a parent with kids in public school, what can we do? What can we do to help in this fight? And of course, there's lots of things in terms of connecting with your congresspeople, being out there to protest, supporting organizations that help. But what advice would you give everyday citizens in terms of what can we do?
Yeah. Slade, the avenues are there if people want to devote the time and give their effort to this. Just last night, I participated in a town hall with the local Indivisible group here on the peninsula. Over 300 folks coming out in the evening to engage with their congressmen, people who care about their democracy, who care about climate change issues, who want to act. And the avenues for citizen action absolutely are there. And, we have a political environment where a lot of big money gets poured in. Just in our special election fight here in California, there's going to be billionaires pouring money in to this race. And I made the point last night that citizen action can counter that big money, and the avenues are there. But just, you mentioned the kids. I just know firsthand, and maybe my situation was unique because my father was a civics teacher, but just having dinner table conversations with your children, just about maybe not so directly about partisan politics, but just the importance of engaging in your community, the ability to make a difference, especially on the local level, perhaps to start just imbuing young people with a sense of civic pride and civic engagement, and just the role that one committed citizen can play. These are all sort of fundamental, small d democratic values. And I fear that sometimes we are losing sight of that, given all of the sort of attacks we have on our democracy. So we've got to fight back on that. But I do think many things start in the home in terms of the values that can get passed on to the next generation. And I certainly hope we support civics education as well in our schools. There's so much focus, especially in my neck of the woods here in Silicon Valley, around STEM and engineering and all these, incredible things that young people can study to find careers in tech and life sciences and AI. We're going to be a hub for that. But I don't want us to lose sight of the role of citizenship and civic engagement. The underpinning for a civil society is so important. So I do hope we can reemphasize that in our schools across the country, especially given the attacks that we see on our democracy and voting rights and citizen action.
And those dinner table conversations really are part of the long game, right? Because we're talking to our young people, and it's going to be in their hands pretty soon.
Absolutely.
Senator Mullin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and for talking with us today.
It's like great to be with you. Thank you for your interest in this, and I'll be heading home to get some fajitas in just a little bit.
That sounds great. Thank you.